Hello, everybody. Welcome. So by now you have been making some log cabin blocks and you have heard that there are some, I'm going to adjust my camera a little bit. There, that's better. And you've heard that there are variations of the log cabin block. Well, there is, and you've tuned into the right video because that's exactly what we've been doing this month of May for our free block of the month program here at Sew in Common. We've been making log cabins and variation of the log cabin on our embroidery machine. We piece on our embroidery machine. Hi, everybody. I'm Diana from Sew in Common. I'm the owner. I'm the designer and the educator here. I'm so glad that you've joined us. And May has been a great month because I love making the log cabin block. And we are going today to do the last variation that we're going to talk about this month, and that is the chevron block. Okay, so why don't I just go ahead and flip over to our other camera. Here we go. And I will, let's see, do we got a good camera shot here? There we go. There we go. And let's review what we've done so far. We've done the traditional log cabin, which goes in a clockwise direction, half light, half dark. And typically we start with the red center. That's the traditional format for doing the log cabin, of course, because it represents the hearth of the home. So that was our first block. That's the main block. And then we've done the twin to the regular log cabin, and that is the one that goes in the anti-clockwise or counterclockwise direction. Basically the same exact block, but as you see, the color gets flipped on where it goes so that when you put them together, I have stacks of these, so there we go, that looks a little better. You can see we're making a secondary design here. In fact, I have enough of these made. Let's see if I can work out my design here and show you. That's the secondary design that you would get when you put two of the anti-clockwise and two of the clockwise log cabins together. Pretty, right? Really fun to do that kind of a block pattern. I'm going to flip these back around because I've got them in stacks for a specific reason, but you guys are going to see on Sunday, on our Sunday video. So this third one that we did, or technically, I guess the second variation, was the courthouse step. This was last week. If you haven't seen the video, please go to our YouTube channel and see the video. And we'd love to have you subscribe to our YouTube channel and click the little bell for notifications. We love having you all join us and be a part of the Sew in Common community. So with the courthouse steps, I made the center the red again, just so that we would see the idea of this block the way we do with the log cabin. However, it is not traditional necessarily to do a red center on your courthouse steps. And as with the log cabin as well, do those centers in whatever color you like. If you want it more traditional, red is a great color or a variation of red. But otherwise, do it in whatever color you like. You might want to pull a color from the fabrics that you're using. That always works well. And so with the courthouse step, instead of moving around in a clock or anti-clockwise direction, we start out with a center square. Then we add a square on each side. And then we start out by doing one side, then the other side, then the top and the bottom, the side and the side, the top and the bottom, the side and the side. So that's how the chevron works. And of course, you can get all of these free patterns at our website. And I will share that again with you before the end of the video today. But all of the free design sets are there. You get your design, you get your instructions, you get your placement template, all for free for the block of the month. And here is this week's design. This is known as the chevron. And if you look at it in comparison to the traditional log cabin, it looks like we're seeing just kind of one half, right? Except we've turned it into a whole square. And what I love about this one, again, I've used red to start, but that doesn't, that can be any color you like. So with this one, you start in the corner and you come out and then down to the side and down to the side and down and so forth until you've made your block. And with this one, what I love now, I have used on my vertical and my horizontal pieces in each, you could consider them rows. I've used the same fabric, except for right there. I ran out of this fabric. It was heartbreaking, but this fabric is from this fabric collection. So I cheated a little bit there, but I've made all of my other ones in the same color fabric. So what you can do though, is you can do each and every piece in a different color, make it completely and totally scrappy. That's a really fun look. And then you can also maybe do a white. So here we do a whitish or a light, and then a dark, a light, then a dark, a light, then a dark. And then you kind of build out a really fun look. And when you put all of these together, you can see right here, I've got a couple more of these that I haven't cut out of the stabilizer yet, but we will do that at the end of the video. And then we'll put these together because you get a nice little secondary design here in the center with this block as well. And if you want to set them on point, it can make a really beautiful point called a chevron quilt as well. Now with this sample, I've gone ahead and washed away all of my stabilizer. I am working, because you know how I love using the wash away, I am working on a process to help us get rid of all of that wash away stabilizer right from the get-go after we make it. Now, of course, I always use my water pen to at least get rid of it before I've made my quilt on my seam allowance pieces. But if you want to get rid of it all at once, I'm working on a process for that. And as soon as I figured out that it's all going to work the way I want, then I'll do a video on that and share it with you. But this one has all been washed out. Now I did, of course, piece in the black so that you all could see it. But all of that's washed out. It's still a beautiful 5 inches finished with my 1/4 inch on all the sides. So it turned out perfectly. And this has been completely wet and dried. No shrinkage, right? So we've talked about that before. There's really no problem with shrinkage when you do these. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and flip back over to our main screen. And now let me remind you again that if you want the free design package, you go to our website, sewincommon.com, and you can get the free downloads. They will all say block of the month. They're free for all of 2023, but after 2023, they'll go away. They'll probably come back in a different design formula somehow, different sizes maybe, or something, but they'll go away at the end of the year after the end of December. So get those while they're available. And now let's flip over and to our machine camera and take a look at how we put this together. Okay, here we are at the machine. Now today I haven't preloaded my stabilizer because I did recently get a question asking if I could show them the stabilizer and stuff up close. So I thought, sure, why not? So I'm using just a wash away, a standard wash away that you would use, say, for freestanding lace. Don't use the clear stuff. It won't hold up. It is not meant to be a base stabilizer. So any brand that you prefer. To be quite honest, I buy an off brand that I can get in packs of 100 sheets for like $15 because it's the same thing as I would purchase from any big name brand and pay 2 to 3 times that much for not even half that many sheets. So I don't recommend any specific brand, whatever brand you like and use, but because I use the water soluble wash away for my piecing, I buy it in more bulk if I can. And I just found it on Amazon. It's 10 by 12 inches, I think, are the pre-cut sheets. I'm kind of crazy about pre-cut sheets. So I've got it in my hoop. Hang on just a second, I'm gonna cut a little piece of string there. So the very first thing I'm going to do is stitch out my border box to show me how big this is finished. Now you'll notice with this block that unlike when we were doing the log cabin and the courthouse steps, we trimmed all the sides until we got to the outer border. But with this one, with the chevron, you have an outer border on every piece of fabric. So we're only ever going to trim the inner edge on this piece and the inner edge on this piece as we go around. And then we won't trim these last two at all until we take everything out of the hoop. And you will see that as we go. So I've done my placement, or my border box. Now I'm going to do my placement line for my first piece. Now, in case you're new to piecing in the hoop, here is the simple piecing in the hoop rule. Every time you lay the first piece of fabric for your square, you lay it right side up, or what I like to call the pretty side up. Now I'm going to take my glue stick. I like putting a little dot right in my first box there, and then pressing this down, and I'm making sure that I have at least half an inch or so on this outside edge, so that when I trim it at the end, I have plenty to give me my border, or to give me my seam. Place it back in, and now we'll stitch the first piece down. And so I've got all of my pieces pre-cut. All of my strips are pre-cut according to the instructions. I have all of those ready. You're going to need 2 of every color that you choose. Now I chose to kind of work in these same fabrics that I've been working in throughout the month, because 1, I really love them, and 2, they're going to all look beautiful when they're placed into a quilt, right? That's just, those are gorgeous. They're not all from the same line though, the same designer line. So here I've just worked from my lightest, which is my whites with the tiny prints, through to the yellows, and then through to my darkest teal with that navy in there, which I think is really lovely. Okay, so our first piece is down. Now I'm going to show you what I mean. Normally we would have, this block would be somewhere in the center in the other blocks we did this month, and we'd trim all the way around it. But here we don't want to trim this edge or this edge until we take everything out of the hoop, because we want enough fabric there to be our seam allowance. So we're only going to trim here and here. And I just kind of eye my 1/4 inch. It's not an exact 1/4 inch. I'm sure it's a tiny bit less, but that's okay. I don't measure these here. I found that, you know, with traditional quilting, doing that 1/4 inch exactly is really important. With piecing in the hoop, it's not quite as important. So I don't come right up to my line though. I just kind of get out here and do my 1/4 inch by eye. Now I'm going to take my next piece, and when I lay these pieces down, so the first rule was that first pieces are always laid right side up. Second and all other pieces start out being laid right side down, or right sides together on top of your last piece, just like that. And I'll place that in. And your 1/4 inch is built right in there, so you've got your 1/4 inch seam. Now that's very short, so I'm going to have plenty of fabric. I make sure with these on this chevron block that I kind of line up my edges out here. That way I'm not wasting a lot of fabric, and when I trim this I'll have extra and I can put that in my scrap bin, or perhaps reuse it depending on the size. Now with these small pieces, I like to put just a little dab of my glue stick and flip it and give it a little press, and I can press with my fingers like I did there, or I can use my seam roller, whichever you prefer. And then we're going to stitch this one down, and then we'll trim it. So really easy to do this block, just like the log cabin and the courthouse steps. It's just a strip, then the next strip, and kind of moving as you go. Now you can see I'm not going to trim out here, but I am going to trim here and I am going to trim here. In fact, I'm going to start by trimming this off the bottom first because that gives me a bigger piece to put in my scrap bin. Or I can save that for my next block because it's definitely a big enough piece for my next block like this. So I'm going to actually put that back over into my usable pile. And then I'm just going to trim right there. But I did not trim away at the top here. And now my next piece is going to go to the bottom. It's the same fabric. Now, if you want, you can do it all scrappy and do a different fabric each and every time. That's not a problem, and it would look great. But I am doing these, I'm doing this block just like you see this block here, okay? I don't want that to be confusing, so I'm doing the same one. And we will sew that down. Now, you see I'm piecing with black thread today. I really love piecing with this light Isocord Gray. 0184 is the color number. It's a beautiful color, neutral color for piecing. But please use any neutral thread that you like. I just wouldn't use your pretty colors because save those pretty color threads for your actual quilting at the end because you certainly don't need them for the piecing. You're not going to see them when you put your piece together. Now we're going to bring this one and stitch it down. And now we will trim. I'm going to trim the bottom off. And that's definitely plenty for another piece, so I'll put that back over in my usable pile. And then I'm going to trim this one, this inner edge here, the inner bottom edge. There we go. Now, you can see on this one, and this will be the way for the rest of them, I have a top edge sticking out here and this edge sticking out here, and that's how this will look all the way around. Now, our next one is my next white fabric. It's one of those tiny prints that you can use as a read as solid print. We've talked about that before, right? Or you can use actual solids, or you can use all kinds of prints. I am not someone who really loves solid colors, but I love prints that read as solids. Like I'm crazy for the Moda Grunge fabrics, well, basic gray, but done by Moda. I love all of those. So I use these tiny, what I also call ditzy prints, frequently in my quilts. I'll put my little glue stick there. You don't have to use glue. If you do, please use a fabric glue stick or a non-toxic glue stick so that you don't have a lot of chemicals, which even after some washing can over time end up harming your quilt. So please make sure it says non-toxic, or it's a fabric glue stick, which is basically a non-toxic glue stick made for fabric. I'm sorry if my voice is still coming and going. Another crazy week with allergies. I woke up this morning with no voice at all. So there, that will go back in my to use pile. In fact, I can probably, yep, I'll use that for my very next strip because it's plenty big enough. And now I'm going to trim this one. Alrighty. Oops, there we go. Now we'll lay this one right side down. See, I have plenty of fabric there for this one. So great use, hardly any waste at all on that. And I love it when we don't have to waste our good fabrics. And that's why we're going to be doing a project with our scraps later in the year, because you're going to love it. You're going to love it. You've seen something similar, but you've never seen, I don't think, this kind of a scrap quilt done exactly this way. At least I never have, so I'm claiming this because I sat here and figured it out on my own, so I've never seen anything quite like this. I've seen a similar idea. I've seen a couple of similar ideas in traditional quilting, but I've never seen something like this done on the embroidery machine later in the year, and I think you're gonna love it, especially if you're someone who loves scrappy quilts, or if you like art quilts, then you'll really love this technique we're gonna do later in the year with our scraps, because it is definitely something that can be used as an art quilt for sure. In fact, I have one that I'm working on that I don't enter contests really with my quilts. I just want my quilts out there making the world more beautiful. Now I'm moving on to my first yellow, which is that one there. So I don't really enter contests, but I am just entering this quilt in an exhibition. We have a local art society, and they've asked if it's not being judged for anything. They just want it in their exhibition. And I said, of course. I know several of the people on the art council, so they've asked me if I will put it in as an exhibition piece. And I said, of course I will. So I'm going to have a quilt that I would consider probably my most art type quilt, if you know what I mean. If you know about art quilting, or what people call art quilting, this is the one I'm doing, is definitely that. You guys will see it when it's done. I'm just not showing any of it or to anyone at the moment, because I'm working on it. I have until, oh golly, late in the fall to get it complete. So, but you guys will be doing this same technique along with me later in the year, and so by then hopefully I'll have enough of it done, or all of it done hopefully by then, that you can see. If you're someone that likes to do art quilts, then this might be a technique that you want to give a try, because quilters are artists. I believe that wholeheartedly, and we just, that's why I say we sew life beautiful. We put beautiful things out into the world in the form of quilts. Actually, I'm gonna lay that like that. That way it's not flopping into my arm there. So now we're on to our second yellow strip of this first yellow color. Now I have this piece left, and I'm gonna just double check. This might be able to be used in my next block for the first part of this yellow. Let me just look here. Let me flip this piece. So that's all really quilting in the, or piecing in the hoop is. It's just placing your fabric down and stitching, and then flipping and stitching it all the way down. So can I use that? No, that's a little short to be used for this piece on another block. So that's going to go in my scrap bin. That's a good size for my scrap bin too. I keep accidentally almost pulling my thread out. I shall have to be more careful. And then I have a little trick to show you at the end for when we stitch around. If you've done some of my blocks, if you've done any of the scrap blocks with me before, the pyramid scrap block, the string piecing, the pyramid or the square string piecing, I've shown you this technique in those blocks, but I'll show you this at the end. Alrighty, so here we are. We have our first yellow done, and now we're going to take our next yellow. For me, it's going to be this one. Now, remember, you can do, now that piece is plenty big because I have more than my edge there, and I have plenty out there, so great. I'm not going to be wasting any of my fabric that way. You can do any colors you like. I mean, these just happen to be colors that I really just find appealing, especially right now. I mean, if you had asked me back in the early 1980s, it would have been all of those French colonial blues and things like that. like the French General fabric that we can still get. I love it. It's so gorgeous in the blues and all. But for years, really, this color and red and this kind of a butter yellow, those have been my 3 favorite colors since I was a very young child. I say this often, I've never met a color that I don't just love, but as far as like picking out my clothes or wanting to paint my bedroom, these were the colors. I had a little red velvet dress when I was about 3 years old. Every family photograph, I'm wearing it, and I would beg to wear it every time. We had formal family photos taken, my parents and I. I was an only child for about a decade before my brother came along. I'm in that red velvet dress in that photograph. Now, it's black and white, but I know it's my red velvet dress. And any other, like, Christmas and stuff like that, I wore that dress until I just literally couldn't wear it anymore because I outgrew it. So now I'm going to take my next yellow piece and it's going to go there. So that red color has just been always a favorite for me. When Dave and I lived in Seattle, we love the opera, and so we belong to the Seattle Opera Guild. Whoops. Okay. Hang on. Yeah. My thread came out. Hang on just a sec. I'm going to need to back up one. There we go. Now I will just rethread my thread. Let me get my tweezers. So Dave and I lived in Seattle for several decades, and we belonged to the Opera Guild, and so they built a new opera house one year, and I ended up buying this gorgeous satin red, like a deep red satin evening gown, and the top of it had really light sparkles on it. It wasn't, here's the story to that. I was having a really hard time finding a dress. It was the day of the opening opera, and there was a little bridal shop right next door to where we lived. So I popped in there hoping beyond hope that I would find a dress, and they had this dress in my size. It had been a bridesmaid's dress that had not been picked up, and they sold it to me for $45, and it was like a $200 dress apparently. I was blown away, and so I got it, and I had had my hair done and all of that. And when we walked into the new opera house that night, we found out that the curtains on the stage were the exact same red as my dress. Now, they were velvet, but they had the same shimmery sparkle on them as the upper part of my dress did. And everyone during intermission was coming up to me and going, "How did you know what the curtain was going to look like so that you could match your dress?" And I'm like, I didn't know. I honestly did not know. So it was just one of those crazy things. So that dress to this day is my opera dress. I've only ever worn it a couple of times, but it certainly will always be my opera dress. So now I'm going to move on to my aqua and my little daisy flowers. So this aqua color, it is just a color that I've always loved. Aqua's pretty much across the rainbow, but that particular one there, I've shared with you all before, my favorite quilting thread is that color, because believe it or not, it will blend in with just about every fabric. So I always wanted a car that color, and there's never been cars available in that color unless you had it painted at the factory, and oh, that's an expensive thing to do, so I've never had a car that color, but I've always wanted a car that color. And then the yellows, I've just always loved these buttercup yellows. I think because there used to be all those beautiful yellow buttercup flowers on my grandparents' farm, And so I just love them because I love flowers. And so when we moved from one house to a bigger house about 2 years after my brother was born, he and I had to share a room together when he was first born because we lived in a small 2-bedroom home. And so my parents, when he was about 2, bought a larger home so that everyone had their own bedroom, which was quite a thing back in the 60s. Actually, by the time he was born, it was the early 70s. But anyway, so it was quite a deal to get my own big bedroom. And my mother let me choose the color to paint the room, which surprised me because she was always my mother has a really wonderful instinct when it comes to decoration, decorating a house, or she can put an outfit together, a clothing outfit together, better than any designer I have ever seen. She really has. Maybe that's where part of my ability to do color and stuff comes from. I don't know. But because she is not a crafts person. She sews. She used to make a lot of clothes, and the few crafts she has done, she's been good at, but she was never a quilter like my grandmother and I. But boy, she made some beautiful clothes when I was young. Stunning, and she can really put them together. But anyway, she let me pick my own color for my bedroom, and I really, really wanted this very light cowslip yellow. I just loved it, and that's the color we painted that room. And then later, when we moved again, because my father, although he was an engineer for Caterpillar Tractor, he was also a minister. And when we moved, because he went to minister at a church in another town, that room was the most grotesque, ugly green, dark, like it was like a muddy olive green. It wasn't even a pretty olive green. And my mother just repainted the room that same color when I was away one summer working as a camp counselor, and I was like, ugh. But what, I mean, you know, you're thankful for what you have, but that green, even though, I mean, technically, if I see that green in certain ways, it's fine, but this paint color was just a muddy color. It wasn't attractive for a teenage girl at that time. Anyway, so I missed my yellow bedroom a lot. All right, guys, we are almost done putting this block together, and you've heard like my little color stories on these 3 colors. I hope you don't mind. So here we are at this final 2, and remember, we're not going to trim these, because now I might trim this piece off because I have another piece to go here, but I don't want to trim this stuff because I need that extra there to do my seam allowance. And so now here, this is just a beautiful fabric. It's got the yellow, these different mint colors, and that kind of a soft blue in it. Oh, beautiful fabric. I wish I still had some more of this. I think I'm down to almost my last few pieces of this one here that I'm doing now. I like to buy fabrics by like at least a yard at a time. If it's not something I know I'm gonna do for a huge quilt, I'll buy at least a yard of it if I love it, because that way I always can put it in lots of things. Okay. And I'm gonna sneeze. Excuse me. Oh, excuse me. Oh, excuse me again. I told you it's the allergies. Oh my goodness. Alrighty, so there's our last piece. And I'll fold that. Now, it looks like we're done with our block, but technically there's one more step for stitching out in the piecing, and that is we do a stitch all the way around because it connects all these little pieces here. However, when we do that, we run the risk with all of these little pieces out here of catching the foot of our embroidery machine. So if we use our embroidery tape and we put a piece, so like up here at the top and on this edge where there's all these different pieces, I put a piece right over the stitch line because that's where it's going to be, and it covers it up enough that you won't get any kind of a pickup from the foot of the embroidery machine. Now I don't do that here because that's all one piece until I get right there, so I'm just going to put a small piece right over that join, and your tape will come off super simple. And then I don't need any across the bottom, but I do need one full piece across that side. And with your tape, I've said this before, but it always bears repeating. With your tape, use a tape actually made for embroidery, or if you use like a medical tape, like this is a medical tape that I'm using right now, use one that says for sensitive skin. If you use a painter's tape, use one that says for low tack, or for ceramics and fine materials. That is the same as saying non-toxic. Okay. Now I will tell you that with painter's tape, not even those that say for fine articles and low tack, those really aren't chemical free or as chemical free as your medical tapes are or your tapes for fabric. Those really are the more non-toxic. But if you're really into using your painter's tape, just don't use that blue stuff or the regular stuff, because that has even though it's made to treat your walls gently, it still has a lot of chemical in it. All right, so I've done all of this all the way around, and now we'll go over under the other camera and I'll take the tape off. And when you take your tape off, always take it off going with the direction of the fold. So if I were to take this off going this way with these coming down, I risk pulling out my stitches. But if I take it off in this direction so it goes with that fold, that is less likely to happen even with these gentle tapes. Okay, so let's go over to our other camera and we'll cut this and trim this out and take our tape off. Okay, everybody, here we are back under our camera, and we're going to trim out our pieces here in just a second. But I wanted to show you the placement template. I apologize that I forgot to do that earlier. And you know, I love these templates that I make for you all because it's easy to check off as you go to know where you are in your piece. It's also a nice way to help you decide where you're going to place your colors beforehand. So with this one, you can even, or with any of the templates that have come with our log cabin and log cabin variations this month, you can even take some colored pencils or crayons and color them in so you know what colors you want to go there. So make 1 or 2 copies and do a little coloring. See what colors you like together, and then use that one as your go-to when you're doing your stitching. And then check your blocks, your boxes when you're doing it, and that way you'll know where it's at. And please, you won't see this word note on yours. That's my mistake on mine. So you're not going to see that on your template. That means nothing. So this is your placement template that comes with your design set. Now let's bring in the block that we just finished. Now we're going to remove our tape. And I always start here with this little piece. It doesn't matter where you start though. And peel that away. And then I'm going to peel this side away. Now see how I'm going in the direction of the fold. If I go against that fold, it's much more likely that I'm going to pull my threads out. So I always try to tear with that fold. And we'll do this side now. You can go ahead and trim this out and then take the tape off if you like. However, I find having a little bit bigger piece of tape to hold on to makes it even a little bit easier. And what I like about this tape is if it doesn't tear completely clean, I can still get it off because you can get right up in there with it. It's really easy to do. Okay. Now I'm going to take off this last piece over here. Get that out of my way. I'm going to flip it this way so I can again take it off with the fold. That way it's much less likely to pull out any of my seams. Now, when I digitize these for you all, I actually digitize them with a slightly smaller stitch length because, again, that holds it all together a little bit better as well. So you might use a 2, a 2.5, or a 3 when you normally stitch on your sewing machine. I use about a 1.8 or a 2 when I do these. Now I'm going to lay my 1/4 inch line of my ruler on my stitch line. And then I'm going to take my rotary cutter. I'm going to make sure all of that's lined up. Yes, yes. And I'm going to trim that off. And if you're new with us, I will tell you I like using a pinking blade in a rotary cutter for this because these pinked edges actually are helping you remove some of the bulk from your seams. All of these dips is just a little less fabric that you have to deal with in the seams. And it can be helpful, especially if you are using a poly mesh or a lightweight muslin as your stabilizer. Maybe not quite as important if you're using the wash away and you're going to wash away the whole thing. And I have another part of that to show you here in just a second. Alrighty. And then I also like to take and just do a little angle cut right on the tips. Don't get near your fabric. Just get right on the tips. Again, that's just a little more out of your seams. I've got a little tape still in there, but I will. Oh, that came right out. So I love how that works. And get these picked up. Alrighty. Oh, hang on. Got it stuck on my fingernail. Oops. Alrighty, there we go. So there is our block that we did. Now I want to bring in 3 other blocks and show you that inner piece. So now when you put this together this way, it looks like you have a block in a block in a block in a block. And it really looks that way when you use your similar colors working out. So it looks like we've got a big white block, a big yellow block, and a big mint teal block, right? An aqua block, except for that piece right there. But it looks like that. And so I love how that works. You can also flip these around and put them, the red pieces in the corner. And that way you're getting this kind of a cross idea again, that other secondary pattern. So how you put them out together out here would depend on if you get blocks and crosses or how that works out for you. Now, I want to show you something. This is the one. So these 2 still have their stabilizer in them. These 2 do not. Now, I've been working on a new technique for getting rid of the stabilizer. And I'm not ready to show it to you quite yet, but when I do, I'll do a video for you. It worked out beautifully here, just beautifully. This one really puckered up on me. I mean, it went like crepe paper. However, I was able to press it out. And when I pressed it out, and I can press it out a little bit more, it is still the same size as my main block. I didn't lose anything there. Now I have to still work on that. And the reason it's puckered is because I didn't pull all of that off. Now, when I pull that off, I will be able to press that out nicely. But what I wanted to show you is the reason that this puckered up and the reason this one, I did the same technique for both of them. The reason this one puckered and this one didn't was because I did something I've told you not to do. With this one, I used a wool setting on my iron, so a lighter setting, a light to medium setting. And then I turned it up to see what would happen if I turned it up and did this process that I'm working on. And when I did, that extra heat just instantly pleated that together. So that's what I mean when I've told you in the past. It is very important that you don't use screaming hot heat on your quilt blocks. A wool or slightly under a wool is all that you need. Now, I've been able to save this, and I'm going to work on it just a wee bit more with a small craft iron to really get in here and pull this out a little bit more and unpucker it a little bit more. Thankfully, I really like a puckered look on my quilts. I think that's what gives it the look of a really homey, good quilt. But I was fortunate enough that I could save this. This can still be used. I didn't lose my actual size after I started working on it. But that's what will happen when you use heat. Okay. And I could have actually ended up like completely ruining this block and not being able to use it. And then I'd be in big trouble because I only have so many of them with this end this way. This one block in this, when I use these, is just going to have to be a funny one. But so same exact process I used, and I'm still, like I said, still working on that. I wasn't able to get everything off of it. Now it looks like today I'm going to be able to get everything off of it pretty easy and finish that up and maybe even flatten it a little bit more for sewing. But it'll work out fine even for sewing if I have to use it like this. And I'm not worried about that. But that was caused by excess heat. And I thought that was really important to show you all because we have talked about that before, right? So what do you all think of the chevron block? Isn't it pretty? So Sunday is our final meeting for May. Gosh, my tongue was tied. And normally the last one of the month is our, I think I have lipstick on my tooth, sorry. Our last one of the month is always a live, but this is Memorial Day weekend. So we're not going to meet. Sunday's video will be an actual pre-recorded video like normal. And if you have questions for me, get them in. Like today is your last day, tomorrow at the most. Get those into me so that I can answer. A few of you sent them in. Thank you so much. Don't forget to go to the website to pick up your free pattern for the chevron, for the courthouse steps, and for the log cabin and the log cabin twin variations. And if you need to contact me, please contact me at Sew in Common, or you can put in at Sew in Common and hashtag Sew in Common when you post your photos so we can see those. But you can, that's not what I want either. You can contact me at support@sewincommon.com. Sorry, I have this one that still says Diana@sewincommon.com. Put the word support in there instead of my first name, please. And that way we'll make sure and get them here because someone else is also helping me right now try to catch up on a few emails. That won't always be the case. I look at them all, but I have someone who is making sure I see them all. I'm answering them, but she's helping me see them all because my system I was losing some emails and we didn't know how that was. So a friend of mine is helping me see that I get all the emails. She's checking to make sure I get them all. And so we're having you send them to support@sewuncommon.com. Okay, great. And then, of course, if you've liked this video, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We'd love to have you as part of our Sew in Common community. Don't forget to enter the contest. I will attach that video at the end of this video so that you can watch it and see all about the contest. In fact, I'm going to need you to enter your contest information no later than June 5th. That has to be my cutoff because of things that I have to do in the production cycle of getting the new product out by the end of June for us. So make sure that you get those into me by the 5th of June. And is that everything I need to tell you? It is everything I need to tell you, I'm pretty sure. Guys, have a great Memorial Day weekend. I found out Dave and I are still going to be around, but we've got some things we're going to do. I think we're going to have a little bit of a barbecue with our neighbors. So enjoy your Memorial Day weekend. Enjoy the memory of those that have Memorial Day, of course, is loved ones that have passed in foreign wars that are no longer with us, but enjoy the memories of anyone that you've known and loved that's no longer with you. It's really important that we do that. That's how we keep our history and our families not lineage, but our history going down the lines. It's taken me years and years and years to track down all of our family history. And so it's really important that we continue to share that down the line so that people in the future will know all about you and all about the beautiful quilts you're making. And so remember all of those folks and enjoy your weekend. And until the next time we get together, which will be our 1st of June block, then I will say so long for now and go sew life beautiful, everybody. Bye-bye.